The story takes place in the royal capital Gallia, where a boy named Cleo, the eldest son of the renowned Fashid family, lived. He graduated from the Royal Academy, the best academy in the kingdom, and felt like he was finally taking steps towards being the successor of the family, until now as Cleo's being told by his father that he's disowned from the Fashid family. His father further mentions that a prestigious family like Fashid doesn't need people who have no redeeming features and reminds Cleo of his school days, asking if there was even one time when he was ranked first. When he fails to reply, Cleo's father pushes him onto the ground, which causes Cleo to realize that his father is correct. Even though he worked very hard to identify his expertise since childhood and was talented at magic, swordsmanship, and many other disciplines, Cleo has never been in first place. No matter what his pursuit was, he has never been able to get first place. Furthermore, his father agrees to give him enough money for his travel expenses and wants Cleo to leave the royal capital tomorrow, while Cleo can't help but agree to his father's demands. The next morning, the servants of his household hand over some money to Cleo. All the things he was given felt so normal to him, and it's because the Fashid family crest, which he had always relied on, wasn't displayed on any of them. Later, he wanders around the town, not knowing what to do. This makes him question why he needs to leave the city and ends up deciding to stay. Cleo then begins to wonder if there is a place in this city where he can live while doing what he wants, and decides to make use of the skills he acquired at school and strive for a fresh start in life. After nailing the cliché superhero landing pose, Cleo heads to the Adventurers Guild, where he believes that he can liberate himself from the rigid life he has lived up until now, but at the same time, Cleo's a bit nervous as he has never seen such chaos while living as a noble. Following that, he goes to the receptionist and ends up becoming an adventurer. With that being said, he heads to the cave at the end of town as he was told about a monster living inside by the guild. After making his way deeper into the cave, Cleo ends up coming face to face with a giant dragon. As the dragon prepares to attack and opens its mouth, Cleo puts one hand forward to defend himself, and even though the dragon hits him with its fire breath, Cleo easily manages to block it with defensive magic. Now it's his turn to attack, but as he didn't bring his sword along, Cleo will need to use magic. Even though Cleo always lost to his childhood friend, Liliana, when it came to magic, he has still mastered the most advanced magic. As the dragon prepares to attack once again, Cleo figures that it'll be best to use explosive magic, as the dragon's scales give it strong armor. Wondering how much damage he'll be able to inflict, Cleo hits him with an explosive attack. Although he was worried at first, he still managed to blow the dragon's head off. Cleo then notices the crystals called magic bases that the dragon left behind and remembers that the guild exchanges it for cash. After spending a bit more time, Cleo defeated a total of 15 demons, 8 hydras, and 1 dragon. For the time being, Cleo decides to take back a few for the time being and leaves, completely unaware of the hooded figure stalking him. Back at the guild, Cleo can't believe that he was able to get this much money, and even receives a Black American Express card for his efforts. Before long, his tummy begins to rumble, which reminds Cleo that he hasn't had lunch yet, and ends up visiting a maid cafe to satisfy both his hunger and his inner desires. Without any hesitation, Cleo pulls out his black card, wanting to buy all the food 5 gold coins can buy, causing the waitress to freak out. While he's waiting for his order, the same hooded figure appears and asks to sit beside Cleo. Furthermore, he introduces himself as Keane and asks for Cleo's name, but Cleo decides not to mention his family name. After enjoying having a drink together, Keane asks if he has been adventuring alone, to which he replies that he's still a newbie. As a result, Keane invites Cleo to be his partner, and Cleo finds this offer quite amusing as all the parties were already full. Just then, the waitress pulls up with Cleo's order, shocking both of them as it's enough to feed someone like Gorlock the Destroyer for years. Following that, the two of them enter the cave again, this time to eliminate a pretty strong monster. Keane reassures Cleo that he's not a weakling and could have been a royal mage in a different life. Hearing the word royal mage reminds Cleo of Liliana, and when Keane asks him about his class, Cleo gets confused. This makes Keane question why he's carrying a sword when he's a mage, and mentions that he can't wait to see a mage with sword skills in action. However, Cleo is aware that he might not be able to meet Keane's expectations as he was never number 1. Soon after, they manage to find the king demon they came here to eliminate. Keane tells Cleo to make sure the monster doesn't notice him, and Cleo jumps down to become the bait. While Keane prepares to unleash some powerful magic, the monster roars at Cleo and begins throwing several fireballs towards him. However, Cleo easily dodges every single one of them and jumps over the monster, giving Keane the signal to attack. Simultaneously, Keane uses his skill named Ancient Flames and burns the monster to ash, which makes Cleo believe that he could really become a royal mage. At this point, Cleo believes that he can't compare himself to Keane's magic and thinks how seeing the power of his magic reminds him of Liliana. Now that the quest is all done, Keane lets Cleo know that he'll have to listen to his orders when suddenly, the ground begins to shake violently, making both of them wonder what happened. Just then, they notice two giant eyes glowing in front of them. Keane begins freaking out and questions why that thing is here, as it's the worst enemy for them. Apparently, it's called Leraes, and they have full resistance to magic. Not only that, but they can avoid physical attacks by flying through the air as well. Keane mentions that they need to run as there's no way he's going to die in a place like this. However, Cleo lets him know that they won't be able to escape as they are completely surrounded. After that, Cleo tells Keane not to move, advising him to cast some defensive magic, so he doesn't get hit by any of the arrows, and after taking a deep breath, reassures Keane that his swordsmanship is only second to the greatest swordsman in the world, Alna. Suddenly, the monster tries to attack them with multiple arrows, but Cleo masterfully cuts every single one of them. He then dashes towards the monster and cuts its bow in half, followed by him attacking the eye present on the monster's forehead. Even though he doesn't know if the second best swordsman is good enough to win, he doesn't seem to have a choice, as if he doesn't, his friend will die. Seeing Cleo easily overwhelm those monsters shocks Keane, who now believes that he can't hold a candle to Cleo. Meanwhile, Cleo finally strikes the last monster and cuts it in half, which results in an explosion. Now standing in front of a mountain of monster bases, Cleo asks Keane if he's alright, not knowing that Keane has now decided to swear both his gratitude and allegiance to him. On the other hand, Cleo's father explains to Liliana that all he was doing was carrying out the Duke household's decisions, saying that it's the only thing he did wrong. But in reply, Liliana calls him an imbecile for disowning his own son. Additionally, she tells him to start searching for Cleo right away, as if he doesn't, Liliana, as a princess, will make sure that his household is brought to ruin. After returning home, Liliana lays on her bed, questioning why this is happening, and decides to wait for Cleo for now. But at the same time, she is determined not to let Cleo forget and make sure Cleo keeps the promise he made that day. A few days later, Keane greets Cleo by saying good morning and questions the kind of quest they should take today. Cleo mentions that he is happy to have his gratitude and asks why his behavior has changed. Apparently, after his fight with the Leraes, Keane's behavior has majorly changed, and after the morning, he even greeted him courteously by saying that elves pledge their allegiance to the person they owe a great debt, and they serve them loyally until the debt is paid. Even though Cleo finds it a bit troublesome, he figures that he'll get used to it eventually. Just then, he notices a black-haired baddie telling the receptionist that she's searching for a boy named Cleo. She mentions that she's heard rumors that he's the best swordsman in the guild, which is why she'd like to request a duel with him. Curious, Cleo goes up to her and asks where she heard about him being the best swordsman. After thinking for a bit, she mentions that she heard it from Keane, making Cleo realize that it was none other than his dear elf friend. After he's done confronting Keane for running his mouth, the girl introduces herself as Ilio, adding the fact that she's aiming to become the best swordsman in the world. Cleo introduces himself as Dan, and before she can ask any more questions, Cleo grabs Keane and starts walking away, letting her know that they have some business to attend to. Following that, Cleo tells Keane that he might be a little above average, but doesn't want to stand out too much, as it's not like he's actually the best swordsman. And when Keane tries to apologize, Cleo grabs him by his shoulder and asks him to be more careful, as he doesn't want people to get the wrong idea about him. This makes Cleo remember that it's nearly impossible to become number one in this city, as in order to be first, one needs to surpass Alna, who was appointed as vice captain of the Royal Knights. During their school days, he was humiliated by Alna countless times, and as the second best, he couldn't even hope to rival him. Currently, their heart-to-heart conversation is interrupted when Ilio shows up and calls him Dan, asking if he has finished his business. Shocked, Cleo mentions that they took a quest in the forest, which totally works for Ilio, as she'd like some warm-up before facing Cleo. Furthermore, Ilio calls Cleo by his real name this time, and Cleo responds without thinking much of it, only to realize later that she's figured out his true identity. With that being said, Ilio requests a duel with him, while Cleo can't believe that he's the one who messed this up. Later that day, Cleo prepares for the duel and asks Keane if he has heard of the Redane house. When Keane disagrees, Cleo replies that their family line has already fallen to ruin, so it's only natural that not many people would know of them. Several years ago, the Ridanes used to be a small family of knights, but one day, they got into a conflict with a certain family, and that prestigious family called Leraes was rumored to be the strongest in the world. Additionally, it was a duel between the candidates for the next heads of household, and based on her family name. Cleo is sure that the reason Ilio is trying to become the best swordsman is because she wants to ruin the Leraes family after getting defeated by them the first time. However, Cleo would like to put a stop to Ilio's sad journey, and when Keane questions why he even cares, Cleo replies that he just feels a sort of kinship with her. After that, both Ilio and Cleo are in the guild where many adventurers are present to witness this duel. They all have heard rumors about Cleo taking down the dragon, and now it's their chance to check whether these rumors about him are true or not. After seeing Cleo in the ring, Ilio mentions that she's grateful he didn't run away, and after seeing him bow before the start of the duel, Ilio figures that he was once a nobleman. Cleo replies that she'll know if she can surpass him, which makes her believe that he too must have a reason for being here. The referee with her mommy milkers on display informs them that everything except for magic is allowed, and eventually, the duel commences. Ilio instantly lunges at Cleo, and he manages to defend himself with a little dagger he's fighting with. After that, he tries counter-attacking, but Ilio blocks it as well, and after exchanging a few blows, Cleo can now feel her strong determination. As they continue battling each other and lock swords, Ilio mentions that he seems quite composed, to which Cleo replies that he's actually frantic. At this point, he is sure that Ilio is also aware of the unsurpassable wall known as Alna, and given that they've both collided with it in the past, they can't help but have a certain sympathy for each other. Nonetheless, the two of them continue exchanging blows, and seeing this battle makes the spectators realize that this isn't the usual level of duel between two no-names. Meanwhile, Cleo compliments Ilio's swordsmanship by saying that it's quite graceful and he can feel her strong determination. She thanks him in return and says that she's never been praised so much. However, Cleo also adds that her swordsmanship is a little too graceful, and she asks him to let her deal her a blow. As the battle goes on, Cleo thinks that Ilio has a strong sense of artistry, but that's her weak point as considering her style. He is aware that she'll try to cleanly eliminate him from above, which is why he needs to disrupt her graceful clean flow. With that being said, Cleo manages to land a kick on her stomach, which breaks her armor and almost makes Cleo fall onto the ground. Cleo is aware that she will now try to strike using the shortest distance, and as he predicted, he does what he thought she would, which allows Cleo to easily deal with it, and this time, hit her with an elbow strike in the same place. To put an end to this duel, Cleo strikes her with his dagger and manages to unarm her, which makes him realize that even though he was the second best, fighting with Alna made him even stronger. In any case, Cleo is deemed the winner of this duel. After he won, everyone begins chanting Cleo's name, while Ilio wonders if she lost again and how nothing has changed since that day. Apparently, several years earlier, the battle between the two houses took place. On one side was the puny house of Ridane, while on the other end, the prestigious house of Leraes. The Ridane family proposed that the future heads of the two houses should face off in a duel, and at that time Ilio had the best swordsmanship in the academy she attended, which made her confident that she'd win. Just as the duel was about to begin, Ilio told Alna that today was the day when the loser and winner would be decided, to which he replied, telling Ilio to stop nagging him over every little thing. Her opponent, Alna, was lauded as a child prodigy, and everything from his expressions and attitude showed a clear lack of motivation. That is why when the date of the battle was set, she was sure that she'd bring Alna to shame, but to her surprise, Ilio suffered a decisive defeat. After that, the defeated house of Ridane was ruined, and they were stripped of their political clout, their nobility, their clothing, and even their place to live. Ilio was continuously tortured and ridiculed by her family for bringing shame to them, and was told that she was responsible for all of this. But just when she was about to lose the will to live, a servant girl appeared in front of him and introduced herself as Sina. She was a beast person with chestnut brown hair and azure eyes who looked really pretty wearing an apron. The reason she was assigned to act as Ilio's servant didn't matter at all, as Sina's smile was enough to cleanse her heart. Sina told Ilio that she was wasting her beauty, to which Ilio replied that she never thought much about dressing up, as by the time she gained consciousness, she already had a sword in her hand. However, Sina wasn't very happy hearing about that, and told Ilio that she needed to pay at least a little attention as she was a woman. In only a few days, Sina managed to make a space for herself in Ilio's heart, and ended up styling her hair, which made her look really pretty. After complimenting Ilio for being the hottest chick in town, Sina told Ilio that all she needed to do was thank her and turned away. When asked, Sina mentioned that Ilio reminded her of her little sister back in her hometown, which came as a surprise to Ilio as Sina rarely talked about herself. Curious, Ilio asked about Sina's sister's name, saying that she'd love to hear more about her. Sina happily told Ilio that her sister's name was Rena, and Ilio commented that Rena was sort of like her little sister as well. Confused, Sina asked what she meant, to which Ilio replied that it was because Sina was a little sister to her as well. Hearing this cheered Sina up, and she told Ilio that she was the one who fixed her hair, so that made her the big sister. A few days later, Sina took permission from Ilio's father and took her outside, telling her that she'd never be anything but a shut-in neat, staying in the warehouse every day. In Arca, the town they were currently staying at, everyone wears clothing called kimonos, and as it was a special occasion, Sina suggested buying a kimono for Ilio as well. However, Ilio wasn't so sure of wearing such attractive attire when suddenly something grabbed her attention, and that thing turned out to be a hair clip. Ilio mentioned that she could probably handle wearing something like that. After noticing the look on her face, Sina decided to buy them and bought one for herself as well, telling Ilio that the two of them match. Additionally, she told Ilio that she was aware of everything that happened to her and reassured Ilio that none of that was her fault. Which is why whenever she was suffering, Sina wanted her to share it with her. This made Ilio wish that the days she spent with Sina could go on forever, but she would later come to regret not conveying those feelings to her. One day, Ilio noticed that Sina was late today and decided to take a look outside, where she noticed a bunch of masked men. She instantly questioned who they were, and judging their aura, she figured that they must be some kind of secret agents. As she was unarmed and hadn't trained for a while, Ilio decided not to resist and was thrown into a room filled with her relatives, retainers and servants, including Sina. Her relatives started telling Ilio to do something, saying that it was her fault, and she needed to take responsibility. The commotion made one of the agents shout at them for being so loud and threatened to eliminate them one by one if they didn't shut up. Eventually, he decided to eliminate one of them as an example, and all the relatives suggested Ilio to be the sacrifice, as she wasn't going to be useful anyway, and was the reason they all got into this mess. This was the first time Ilio felt their hatred clearly, and realized that she had no allies even with her family. But just as she was about to agree to become the sacrifice, Sina intervened and decided to become the hostage, telling everyone that the most useless of anyone was none other than herself. The agents agreed to her request and grabbed her by her head, while she reassured Ilio that she'd be fine if it was for her. After they took her outside, Ilio started crying and blaming herself for everything. At the same time, her relatives started planning to run away, and hearing those words broke something inside of her. This made her realize how little her and Sina's life was worth to them. Before long, one of the agents came back, and after walking up to him, Ilio kicked him in the face and grabbed his swords. Her relatives started cheering for her and asked Ilio to help them out. However, she almost chopped off their family jewels, and after telling them to get lost, Ilio ran outside in order to save the one person who understood her. Soon after, she caught up with the other agents and eliminated them one by one. After she noticed Sina with the ringleader, Ilio jumped to end his life with a single strike, and just as she was about to cut him down, he placed Sina in front of himself, causing Ilio to accidentally stab her instead. This gave them the chance to run away, and Sina told Ilio not to blame herself, as she was really happy to meet her. After wondering if a small part of her could remain in Ilio's heart so the two of them could be together forever, Sina eventually passed away. As she sat there, crying and regretting her actions, Ilio's father appeared and told her that everything started the time she lost the duel. If she hadn't lost, Sina wouldn't have died, and according to her father, the only way to clear their name was to get revenge. Even though Ilio was sure that revenge wouldn't bring Sina back to life, she decided to ignore that fact and made up her mind to get revenge on Alna. Her father pressured her to dedicate herself to her training more, to which she agreed and promised to become the world's best swordsman. With that being said, she kept lying to herself and devoted herself to training to run away from her own weakness and deny reality. Then, several years later, she lost to a boy named Cleo, and due to the fact that she forgot it was a duel and not a sword fight, Ilio was easily defeated. After that, Ilio asks what he wants from her and wonders what Cleo might ask and if those hellish days will start again. But to her surprise, Cleo tells Ilio to forget about revenge and join his party instead. Surprised, Ilio questions how he knows about her revenge, to which he replied that he heard some rumors and reassured Ilio that it wasn't her fault, so the least she can do is let him split some of the pain with her. This reminded Ilio of Cena, and with tears in her eyes, she decided to join his party. Her interaction with Cleo made her realize that he treated her like a person, just like Cena did. On the other hand, Alna asks Liliana about how Cleo's father has been doing lately, to which she replies that he's going around to every district in the city, asking them to look for Cleo. His cheeks get more sunken every day, and he looks pretty exhausted. Liliana then asks if he has grown accustomed to the Order of Knights, to which Alna agrees and mentions that even without the Order of Knights, there are a ton of amazing guys running around. For example, there's a guy in the guild with the SS rank plus. He is also interested in the newbie who eliminated a dragon. Following that, Alna reassures Liliana that he's going to surpass those guys wandering the land and the captain of the order as well. Then he'll change the Order of Knights because that's the kind of man he wants to become. When Liliana mentions that it feels like another big declaration, Alna puts his hands on her shoulder and asks Liliana to give him an answer already. She figures that he must be talking about his proposal, to which Alna agrees and gets told by Liliana that she'll take his meat wand once he beats Cleo. But she doesn't want it to be sword fighting, but a no-hold-barred fight. She further comments on how Cleo's father couldn't comprehend his son's true power, as even though their academy was full of the best talent in history, Cleo was second in every subject, and a duke who goes and disowns that kind of gem has no value as a duke. Lastly, she asks Alna if he'll accept her request to search for Cleo, and he instantly agrees, figuring that this is the reason she called him here. This makes Liliana wonder if he's accepting for a chance at marrying her, and Alna agrees, but he's also accepting this request as Cleo is the only one who ever made him get serious in a sword fight. On the other hand, Cleo is enjoying dinner with his new party, and it's been around a week since he became friends with Ilio. He believes that her swordsmanship is impressive, and if their match had been purely on sword skills, he's not sure which one of them would have won. Just then, Keane lets him know that they need one more person for their party, someone who can offer combat support. However, he wonders if anyone even wants to join a novice no-name party like theirs. This causes both of them to stare at him with blank expressions, and Ilio lets Cleo know that based on all the rumors, Cleo is pretty famous. The very first rumor was that he registered with the guild and immediately humbled a dragon, and he's been standing out a lot by bringing a huge number of magic bases. Additionally, he has been taking more duels since the one with Ilio, and lastly, every time he visits the restaurant, he treats everyone. Cleo begins to wonder if it's troublesome for the restaurant if he keeps on treating people and suggests discussing it with the guild, when suddenly, they all hear a giant dude shouting at a little girl. Cleo realizes that he's got a bad feeling about this, and just when the little girl tries to talk back, he smashes one of the tables, telling her not to talk back. One of the customers tries calming him down by reminding him that Cleo is treating everyone, suggesting they all have a good time. But that dude tells him to shut his trap and punches him on the face, shocking both Cleo and Keane. After that, he returns his attention to the little girl and decides to teach her with pain if she can't understand his words. But just as he is about to punch her, Cleo instantly gets in front of her and pulls out his strongest defensive spell. However, that dude's punch easily breaks through the defensive spell and sends Cleo flying, crashing into the wall. That girl starts getting worried about Cleo, while the big guy tells her that there were unexpected victims because she wasn't listening. He further questions if anyone else wants to say something when Ilio appears out of nowhere, but he easily manages to dodge her surprise attack, shocking Ilio. Following that, he grabs Ilio by her arm and throws her onto the ground, warning her not to get in his way. However, Cleo argues, saying that he will be getting in his way as he can't allow him to put his hands on such a small girl. His arm is currently bleeding from blocking that strike, and this reminds Cleo that he used more mana to block this attack than he used fighting that dragon back then. The big guy then asks Cleo if he knows who he is and tells him not to poke his nose in other people's business. He further adds that she ignored her orders even though he's the leader, but the girl replies that they should have withdrawn and healed everyone in that situation, asking why he had everyone charged. That big guy replies that he's the party leader, which means everyone is nothing more than his pawns, and no matter how many of them die, they are easily replaceable. He then puts his hand on the girl's head, saying that she's the only one complaining about it. Just then, Cleo intervenes once again, grabbing his hand and asking if that's all friends mean to him. But when he tells Cleo to mind his own business, Cleo suggests fighting him and asks to let him take care of the little girl as he can't leave her with someone who's trying to hurt her. This makes the big guy laugh out loud, and when he asks that girl, Mackie, about her decision, she remains quiet. Having no other choice, he tells Cleo to meet him tomorrow morning at the public square and tells Cleo not to run away. Back at the inn, Cleo mentions that he wasn't thinking straight back then, and when Keane inquires about his injuries, Cleo replies that it's healing, but his healing spell barely counts as first aid. Furthermore, he apologizes for dragging the two of them into this and asks about Ilio's injury, who replies that it's just a scratch compared to his wound. After that, Keane informs Cleo that he messed with the wrong guy. His name is Gown, and he's extremely famous throughout the royal capital as the only SS rank adventurer. Apparently, he was a member of the royal capital's Cendelius house, but because of his violent and arrogant personality, his father unsubscribed from his life. After being disinherited, he rose through the guild's ranks swiftly and became famous by making full use of his violent tendencies. While Keane wonders why he would do something like that to his own comrades, Cleo can't help but feel uneasy as he can't understand why Gown let them take custody of Mackie until the duel. Just then, someone knocks on the door, and it turns out to be Mackie, who wanted to thank him for helping her out earlier. Cleo apologizes for meddling in her business, but gets told that he was incredible as Gown was the one at fault. Additionally, rather than just saying thanks, she'd like to be useful, and as she's a healing mage, Mackie wants to treat his wounds. Ilio asks her to treat Cleo first, and he advises her not to push herself too much. After taking a deep breath, Mackie begins healing his wounds, and seeing her powers shock everyone as they can't believe she has this much mana. Cleo also notices that Mackie has so much mana that she doesn't even have control over it. After a few seconds, his injury is completely healed, and everyone begins clapping for her. Keane mentions that Gown probably doesn't want to lose Mackie, which is why he accepted the duel, but Cleo replies that there's something off. He then tells Mackie that there's no reason for her to apologize as Gown would never have hit her. Curious, Ilio questions what he means, to which he replies that based on the trajectory of that punch, it would have just missed Mackie and Gown was just trying to intimidate her. He also believes that Gown was holding back as a punch that could break his defensive barrier should have dealt him a ton of more damage. Cleo feels like he's hiding something, and when he asks Mackie if she's noticed that uneasiness, she agrees. Cleo further adds that he had no intention of hurting Mackie and most likely abandoned his comrades to protect Mackie. But when Ilio mentions that he's overthinking it as Gown's just a dumb barbarian, Mackie yells at her for talking badly about Gown and lets them know that Gown would do anything it takes to keep her alive, and he was the one who took her in as she didn't have any relatives. Cleo then asks Mackie if she can tell him a little more about Gown, as he feels like Gown's trying to measure his strength, and that makes him feel uneasy. Elsewhere, Gown laughs at Cleo for being the novice everyone's talking about and believes that he might actually be strong. He is also a bit frustrated that Mackie went with him without any resistance, but is aware that he just needs to take her back. Knowing that Cleo is the first guy not to be afraid of him since that person, Gown doesn't want Cleo to let him down. The next morning, the three of them are on their way to the place where the duel will take place. Ilio asks Cleo if he has any plans to beat Gown, as he's a SS rank adventurer, as there's no way they can take on his superhuman strength. Keane agrees, saying that they'll lose if they try fighting him directly, but Cleo reassures them that he's been thinking of tactics since yesterday. There are 3 challenges they'll need to overcome to execute his plan, and even though it's a bit reckless, he has faith that they can pull it off. With that being said, they all arrive at the location where Gown commends Cleo for not running away. He further reminds Cleo that they didn't come here to chat, asking if he's ready for this. Turns out one of the restaurant's waitresses will be acting as the witness, and as the restaurant was damaged yesterday, the owner has requested her to take compensation from the loser of this duel. Since this duel is for Mackie, she'll be observing alongside her, and as there's no referee, the rules are up to the participants. With that being said, the two of them walk away, and when Gown mentions that he won't be losing, Cleo replies that it's his line. After that, Gown calls out all the people nearby and comments on how there's a lot more present than yesterday, which makes Gown believe that there's a lot of guys who want to get some fame by beating Cleo. However, he is already aware of the difference in numbers, and as it's Gown who designated the location, he most likely has a formation that will block any escape routes. Taking it into account, Cleo makes the first move, but Gown lets him know that some weak spell wouldn't work on him. Apparently, Cleo puts up a smoke screen, but Gown is not bothered as he's aware that the others can't see either. Just then, he hears a sound, and all the other spectators also notice Ilio running around the battleground, scraping her scabbard along the ground as she runs. They quickly realize that it's a magic circle, making them wonder what the mage is scheming. After she's done making the circle, Keane uses his mana to make a wall that will obstruct the other enemies. Seeing this makes Gown laugh, and he figures that they are aiming for numerical superiority, but at the same time, he's aware that Keane won't be able to hold it for that long. While Gown believes that it was a good idea to split his party up, he is also sure that if Keane goes down, it will be all over. Now, Cleo's second challenge is to take care of Gown's battle axe. Without wasting any more time, Gown begins swinging his axe, which makes Cleo wonder if they can even defend Keane from a battle axe user. After that, he tells them to come to him as they don't have enough time thanks to Keane's magic. With that being said, the two of them charge at Gown in order to measure the time between his swings and manage to block each and every swing of his. While dodging his advances, Cleo notices that the range is huge, but Ilio realizes that it's a lot slower than expected, and like this, she can take him all on her own. Even though Cleo tries to stop her, he's a little too late as Gown manages to use the back of his axe to hit Ilio like a billiard ball. Ilio gets pushed back but doesn't give up and suggests continuing the fight, letting Gown know that he wasn't the only one taking it easy at the restaurant. She then charges at Gown, and he notices that she's even faster than before. He manages to block her strike with his axe, but this gives Cleo the chance to attack, but sadly, both of them are pushed away by him. Before they even get the chance to collect themselves, Gown swings his axe once again, and while blocking it, Ilio's sword ends up breaking into two pieces. The two of them fall near Keane, which gives Gown the perfect chance to take care of the mage. However, Cleo was already aware that they wouldn't be able to stop the axe and told the two of them that they would only be a diversion. He wanted Keane to stop his axe using his magic and capture it in his defense wall instead of deflecting it. A barrier that can't repel or be broken needs to be flawless, and while Cleo can't pull something like this, Keane was easily able to. Before Gown gets the chance to retrieve his axe, Ilio targets his hand holding the axe and injures him enough to make him let go of his weapon. Simultaneously, Cleo uses his magic to freeze the axe, making it impossible for Gown to retrieve it during the battle. This makes Gown mention how fun it is as Cleo used a spell specialized for capturing people or monsters. However, he also informs Cleo that his mage is about to hit his limit and Ilio's sword is also broken, so she can't possibly do anything either. But Cleo replies that it doesn't matter as his friends were only helping him out. From the start, this was a fight between him and Gown. At this point, Ilio isn't sure if Cleo will be able to beat him and starts thinking about how Cleo always undervalues himself, but while discussing the strategy, she noticed a different look in his eyes. Meanwhile, Mackie mentions that she has seen Gown fight many opponents, but she feels something different from Cleo. While Gown uses his emotions like rage, resentment, and fear to beat his opponents, Cleo seems to be enjoying this fight, which makes Mackie think that maybe Gown was waiting for an opponent like this. On the other hand, Cleo mentions that Gu has been hiding something really important about Mackie, and Gown figures that Cleo probably started suspecting after learning about her circumstances. However, he couldn't learn anything from her because she didn't know, and if he wishes to know, he'll tell him only if Cleo manages to defeat him. Gown then tells Cleo to come at him with all he's got if he wishes to know that badly. Cleo figures that one needs to get serious if he's going to challenge the best. Keane is aware that Cleo might be able to defeat Gown if he uses the same power he used when they first met, and he needs to maintain the wall until Cleo reveals his true power. Just then, Gown tries punching him, but Cleo notices it just in time and somehow dodges the attack. Everyone is shocked to see this, and Mackie mentions that this is Gown's real power. Meanwhile, Cleo manages to land on a piece of debris and uses the first form of expert skill, Limit Break. After that, he jumps towards Gown and attacks him with his dagger, but gets pushed away. This makes him realize that even his first form is outmatched, and when he tries going for another strike, Gown kicks the dagger out of his hand and counterattacks by throwing a punch at him. Cleo figures that this is not a good time to hold back and ends up using the third form, which allows him to stop Gown's punch, which should be unstoppable. Gown begins laughing seeing Cleo go Super Saiyan mode and mentions how amazed he is to see a brat like him use the expert skill. Cleo replies that all of his number ones in his class could use them, so it wasn't a big deal, and he still can't use the god skills. Apparently, expert skills are secret techniques that represent the height of discipline, and even though there are more superior skills, Cleo hasn't even mastered an expert skill yet. He is also aware that it's a double-edged sword as the burden on one's body is great. But he still wishes to use it because Cleo wants to surpass Gown. He then tries punching Cleo once again and Cleo easily manages to dodge it. Furthermore, he slides under Gown and cuts his arm from the back using his dagger. But at the same time, Gown counterattacks by punching Cleo in the stomach. At the same time, Cleo also stabs Gown's elbow and tries to kick him in the face, but misses. Ilio notices that they are evenly matched now and asks Keane to hold on just a little longer. Meanwhile, Gown can't help but laugh as it feels like all his life has been one big lie, and he can't believe he has finally met such an outstanding person, which is why he's grateful for Cleo for appearing before him. Apparently, Gown was always mocked by people for looking like Frankenstein, except for one shorty who was into him. He always told that girl Naki to not burden herself with this sort of life, but she had no choice since Naki ran away from aristocracy. Once, Gown even made an amulet from the prey he caught and gave it to his newly born daughter. Sadly, one day, his wifey checked out of life and his village was set on fire, but the one thing that haunted Gown was that his daughter went missing. Following that, Gown was no longer the enthusiastic guy he used to be until he finally found his daughter again, who was wearing the same amulet that Gown once made for her. Turns out that it was Maki, but Gown was aware that she shouldn't stay with him, and because of that, he has been waiting for someone who doesn't falter no matter what kind of group they must fight. Someone who gathers allies without distorting the truth, and someone who would oppose him just like Cleo did. Right now, Cleo is aware that he can only maintain expert skill for 10 more seconds, and while he hasn't hit an effective blow on Gown yet, his next move will decide the whole match. Just then, Keane runs out of mana and falls onto the ground, causing the protective barrier to disappear as well. At the same time, Cleo dashes towards Gown, ready to stab him with his dagger. Gown figures that he's going for his shoulder, only for Cleo to change the attack at the last moment and stabs Gown in his stomach. Blood starts dripping out of his body and everyone looks at him in shock. However, Gown seems to like it, and after removing the dagger from his body, reassures Cleo that no one will lay a hand on him now. With that being said, he announces that he lost and informs Cleo that Maki is his daughter and the only light in his miserable life. This makes Cleo question why he's trying to put an end to his life when he needs to be by Maki's side. Gown replies that he ruined her life, and since Cleo is like her, he believes that Cleo won't let the same thing happen to Maki. Guan further mentions that he's not the type of guy that Maki needs around, and after leaving the rest in Cleo's hands, he falls onto the ground, asking Cleo to take care of Maki. All his party members start panicking as they can't believe a monster like him was defeated, while Ilio informs Keane that Gown stabbed himself with Cleo's dagger again. Just then, Cleo shouts, saying that they can't let him die. Furthermore, he apologizes to Maki as he doesn't have time to sort out her feelings, and while he doesn't know what she's feeling, all he wants is to save Gown. He can't let things end like this and tells Maki, and the two of them are going to save her dad. Maki instantly runs towards her father and gets told by Cleo that the wound is deeper than his childhood regrets, and as Gown's bleeding a ton, they have to hurry. He further mentions that Maki's healing is pretty impressive, but it's not perfect yet. This makes Maki question if she can't save him, but she is reassured by Cleo that if they do it together, they might be able to save her old man. Meanwhile, Keane mentions that magic is a combination of comprehension, construction, and deployment, but as Maki's not really great at construction, she can only exhibit half of her mana. Cleo tells her that he'll take care of managing her mana, asking her to use her powers as usual. Gown's men believe that no matter how good Maki is, she won't be able to stop bleeding, as it's something not even the Great Saint can do. However, Cleo truly believes that she's just as good at healing as Marin, the Great Saint. With that being said, she finally begins using her powers, and even though Ilio finds it pretty incredible, Keane believes that it's no use as her powers are not enough. Gown's men start motivating her as well, saying that she's the only one who can save their master. With tears in her eyes, Maki gives it everything she's got and remembers the moments she spent with Gown, which makes her realize why he was always so kind to her. This is why she can't understand why she can't save him when he needs her help the most. Just then, Cleo decides to give her a hand and begins using his magic as well, which results in a bright flash of light. Everyone is surprised to see this display of power, and before long, Keane notices that his fatigue is gone, and Ilio's wound starts getting healed as well. Not only that, but all the battle scars that Gown's men had started disappearing as well. This combination of Cleo's and Maki's magic has incredible healing potency, as everyone in the area is being healed by it. Keane begins laughing, calling Cleo pretty amazing, and when Ilio asks him to explain it in a toddler-friendly version, he replies that Cleo is controlling Mackie's power, allowing her to output the maximum efficacy of her magic. This is only possible because of Mackie's vast mana reserves and Cleo's ability to control it instantly. Following that, Cleo apologizes to Mackie, saying that they still haven't brought out her full potential as he's only the second best at controlling mana, but still, they managed to save her dad. As she begins crying with tears of joy, Cleo mentions that she can now talk about various things with Gown as father and daughter, and she makes sure to show her gratitude to him. Now, a few months have passed since that day and Cleo has developed friendly relationships with the people around Gown as well. Cleo has heard that Gown scouted the local freaks and told them that he could show them how to make more money. After making them join his team, he always used to give them the whole reward, saying that they deserved it for protecting Mackie. Back in the present, Gown appears, asking if he's treating his men again. Mackie also arrives with him and greets him by saying good morning. Cleo lets her know that they are on their way to the guild. Gown asks if she has her healing medicine, medicinal herbs, a map and change of clothes in case she gets wet, only to be told by Mackie that he doesn't have to worry that much. With that being said, she leaves for the guild with Cleo and gets told by Gown to be careful. Meanwhile, in the throne room of Gallia Castle, Cleo's father is kneeled before the king, apologizing for still not being able to find Cleo. Liliana yells at him, saying that it's obvious that he should be looking for him. When he asks King to have mercy, the king replies that the academy had quite the crop of students, and while Cleo fell behind the students who could use god skills, he was still second best in every subject, and he's confident Cleo can do something in service of the royal capital. Furthermore, the king believes that there must be another reason for what he did to his son, to which Cleo's father replies that he has no answer to that. The king further adds that even though the monsters had quietened down after the subjugation of the Demon King, they are starting to get active lately. He has also predicted when the next uproar will occur, and within the month, some calamity will befall the royal capital. When Liliana questions why he didn't predict it sooner, the king replies that his rotten brain could only do so much. She realizes that the Order of Knights and many adventurers are absent from the capital and wonders if Alna and his party could be in danger. This is more the reason they need to find Cleo quickly. Just then, Marin, the saint of the New Age, appears and tells them to leave the search for Cleo to her. However, when Liliana argues that it has nothing to do with her, she replies that it's natural for someone to help the Duke's search when their fiancé has gone missing. Liliana gets furious hearing this and questions who she is calling her fiancé. While bouncing the yoga balls attached to her chest, Marin replies that she's talking about Cleo and herself. However, Liliana replies that the royal family hasn't approved of any such thing, which makes Marin question if Liliana has started giving orders about Duke's engagement. Cleo's father intervenes and tries to thank them for looking after his house, only to be told by Liliana that they are only doing this for Cleo. The king then asks Marin if she has any clues about Cleo's whereabouts, and she begins staring at Cleo's father, later telling the king that it's hard to see what's under one's nose. Liliana figures that with Alna searching for him outside the kingdom and Marin within, they should be able to find Cleo soon, but she can't help but be worried about Cleo's father's premonition. Elsewhere, to the east of the royal capital, Alna is sleeping peacefully but gets woken up by his comrades. She informs him that this is a situation which requires urgency as they've been surrounded by monsters. Elsewhere, Cleo is training hard, doing push-ups, and is on his way to the 1,000 mark. Just then, Gown appears and compliments Cleo for working hard, to which he replies that this has become his daily routine. He further notices that the rock Cleo's using is much bigger than he was in the beginning, and after he finally reaches the 1,000 mark, Cleo throws the boulder in the air and uses expert skill, Limit Break, to try and cut the boulder in half, but sadly fails. Gown laughs at him, saying that he still has a long way to go, and gets told by Cleo that his training regime is pretty tough, especially when he's wearing the burden item that Gown gave him. He never thought it'd be this exhausting to have his body and mana in a weakened state. Gown replies by saying that nothing can explain the quick rate of growth Cleo has demonstrated and believes that he might be stronger than him soon. But Cleo disagrees, as he's not confident that he can break the rock even without wearing the weakening bracelet. Gown further questions why he is in such a hurry, to which Cleo replies that their battle made him realize just how much improvement he needs. But Gown argues that he doesn't know anything, and the reason behind this is that Cleo's not heartless and it's his naivety which holds him back, not his strength. Furthermore, Gown reassures him that he's pretty strong, considering how he managed to defeat a double S rank as a newbie. Gown then mentions that he has heard rumors about the top students at the academy, and the only difference he feels between them and Cleo is his naivety. While on the other hand, Alna finally wakes up and mentions how he was having such a great nap. The girl reminds him of their current situation, and after looking around, Alna notices that they are completely surrounded. Following that, he thinks of a skill that will work in this situation and tells everyone to watch their heads. The girl yells at everyone to duck, and without wasting any more time, Alna uses his expert skill called the Boundless Sword Strike, cutting each and every monster surrounding them. His comrades can't believe that he took out the whole pack with a single strike, while that girl expected this much from the vice captain who's praised as a prodigy. Alna then mentions that he has never seen these monsters, and while he's glad that they hid their presence while approaching them, he is also a bit disappointed regarding how soft they were. Cleo believes that if one hasn't seen the academy top students, they can't imagine what they are capable of. Using the expert skill ends up making Cleo's hand all numb, but people like Alna are on a completely different level. He then asks everyone if they are alright and figures that it would have been bad if they didn't deal with this pack of monsters first. The girl also wonders why there are monsters that don't match the environment here, and the bookworm of their squad says that the rock these monsters are made of are the same as in the dungeon near the kingdom. This is a phenomenon he's never seen before and believes that they might pose a threat if they get closer to the kingdom. The girl reminds Alna that the kingdom is defenseless as the Order of Knights is away and suggests returning home, but Alna refuses. He mentions that the castle is guarded by strong warriors, so it'll be fine, and they will carry out the duty given to them by the king. Meanwhile, Gown notices that Cleo cut his training short and wonders if he has some urgent business to take care of, to which Cleo replies that he's been swamped with requests lately. This time, it's a quest directly from the guild, and as he can't decide on his own, he's meeting the others at the inn. Gown wonders if it has something to do with the number of monsters increasing recently and figures that he will have to discover the source by going deep into the dungeon. However, Cleo replies that it'll be fine as he has been there before. Gown compliments him by saying that he'd expect nothing less, and Cleo lets him know that it's only because his companions are so talented. With the addition of Mackie, they have now become an expert team with excellent balance. With that being said, Cleo says his goodbyes to Gown and enters the inn where he hears someone shouting some pretty obscene curse words. That person questions the receptionist about the country this is, and when he replies that this is the kingdom of Galia, that man asks how he doesn't know about Japan. Everyone gets confused hearing this, along with Cleo, who is hearing about Japan for the first time. In the end, that man gives up and walks past Cleo, pushing him aside. As he walks away, he mentions that there's no way this world can exist, while Cleo thinks about the unsettling feeling he's getting from him. Eventually, that guy decides to find some clues at the place he woke up to and begins thinking about the girl who appeared in his dreams and asked if he was a biologist. She told him that he possessed something incredible that no human possibly could and promised to give him special powers and a place to belong. After walking for a while, he comes across a giant golem who puts his hand in front of that guy. Figuring that the monster wants him to get on, he ends up going along, and that monster takes him to a cave where a pretty malevolent-looking structure is present. He questions if this is the facility that girl talked about and can't understand why there are monsters there. Just then, he notices a book, and after reading it, he finds out that he was called in this world by a predecessor of some sort, along with the fact that a device to produce monsters exists. He figures that he's being put in charge of this place and that the contents of his research are about to be useful. He believes that it was God, and after he died, she gave him a task and received him. Excited, he ends up agreeing to do the job, and after putting the robe in front of him, decides to display his power and make the people of this world bow at his feet, with the ultimate goal of becoming the next Demon King. While he laughs like a maniac, a fine shorty looks at him and thinks how she found something remarkable just when she went away to train. She decides to return above the ground and report this to the royal capital as the use of monsters and that building are far too suspicious. On the other hand, Cleo enters the dungeon to complete the guild's request and encounters a golem, which makes him wonder if this is the monster they are looking for, as he hasn't seen it in the books before. Nonetheless, he asks Keane to handle it, and while he charges up his magic, Ilio manages to land an attack on it, allowing Keane to get an easy hit and ultimately explode the monster. After seeing him take care of it using only one attack, Mackie compliments him for doing a good job, while Cleo figures that it's the same monster from the report as they suddenly appear without any presence. After inspecting it, Cleo realizes that they are made from the same materials as the dungeon walls and knows their attack pattern along with the fact that they are aware of adventurers. While he wonders why they aren't turning into magic bases, the monster suddenly grabs Mackie in its hand, shocking everyone. Without wasting any time, Ilio jumps and tries severing its hand, but her sword fails to cut the monster's arm, which comes as a surprise to her as she didn't expect it to be this hard. Seeing it regenerate instead of turning into magic bases, Cleo questions if it's immortal, but before he can even do anything, that girl from before appears and with a single attack, takes care of that monster and saves Mackie. Ilio gets shocked to see her destroy the monster with only one hit. Mackie also thanks her for saving her life, to which she replies that it was close, followed by her greeting Cleo. When Keane asks if he knows her, Cleo introduces her as his classmate and the #1 martial artist of their academy, Linky. Additionally, he questions why Linky is in the dungeon, as their party is working with a research organization, and even the guild is prohibited from entering the dungeon. Linky replies that she has been holed in the dungeon for training since graduation, and didn't know much about what's going on outside. Apparently, she has been training with these rock monsters in the depth of the dungeon, and advises Cleo to leave as soon as possible. Just then, another monster appears and Linky mentions that after beating one of them, more and more monsters keep showing up, and it's nothing she can't handle. Even though she destroys 2 monsters at the same time, 4 more of them appear. She mentions that it's hard to fight them after so many appear, and lets Cleo know that if they keep pushing, they won't have any problem escaping. Once outside the dungeon, she praises Cleo for making a good team, as they are cooperative and trusting. She then informs Cleo about the facility she found that's the source of all this madness, and asks him to come with her to report the findings to the king and Liliana. However, after seeing him remain silent, Linky mentions that he will make her opinion more coherent, and he has the social status to pass them on to the higher-ups. Meanwhile, Ilio thinks how all of them were just trying to catch up while Cleo was running side by side with the #1 martial artist. She further wonders if Cleo is a nobleman, considering he attended the Royal Academy. Linky further tells Cleo that those who hold power must think of a way to use it, and with that being said, the 2 of them appear in front of the royal castle. But in the end, Cleo apologizes and refuses to go inside, and when Linky asks if he has a reason not wanting to meet with them, he replies that he is no longer a nobleman and doesn't have the social status to request an audience with the king or Liliana. Linky figures that a lot happened while she was away, and knowing that she doesn't have time pitying him, she goes on her own, letting him know that he should have avoided the royal capital in its entirety. Just then, the mad scientist from Japan appears and walks past Cleo. He begins to panic, wondering what is this weird feeling he's getting. The scientist then asks the guards to let him meet the ruler of the kingdom, as he wants to greet him after his awakening. However, the guards mention that he's dressed like a thrift store fashion model and tells him to go home. He gets frustrated with the guards not allowing him to meet the king and lets them know that if they don't let him, the country will be destroyed. As expected, the guards begin laughing, telling him that the king doesn't have the time to entertain street clowns. However, they quickly stopped laughing after seeing the hands of a golem emerge from the ground behind him. Cleo notices that he seems to be controlling them and wonders if he plans to eliminate the guards. Knowing that he doesn't have time to waste, Cleo uses the expert skill and instantly destroys them, shocking the scientist. Furthermore, Cleo grabs that man and pins him onto the ground, letting him know that he's going a bit too far along with the fact that he can feel something odd about him. The scientist then begins mentioning that they don't understand him. According to him, all he did was kindly come to tell them what's going to happen to this kingdom, but if they don't want to listen to them, it doesn't matter as it's God's will. Just then, another hand emerges from the ground and after grabbing the scientist, disappears. Cleo starts wondering if this is the man who was manufacturing the golems and asks the guards to inform the king about the possibility of the capital getting attacked. But when the guards inform him that the Order of Knights will be back anytime soon, Cleo freaks out and runs away as fast as he can, knowing that if they're going to invade, now is the best time as the capital's forces are split in half, and that way, the royal capital will be destroyed. On the other hand, the scientist returns to his cave and starts raging over the fact that no one listened to him, even though he tried warning them about everything. But at this point, it doesn't matter to him as they all will be wiped out anyway. After that, he looks at the golem and mentions that after using the research of regeneration, and by adapting the power of his predecessors, he has made the golem unstoppable. Currently, he has made around 1,000 golems, and can even make more if he wants. On the other hand, Linky also appears before the king and Liliana to inform them about this man. Cleo continues running as fast as he can, knowing that he has to hurry as the enemy doesn't seem to be planning ahead. He plans to first meet with the others and collect weapons he left with them. As he remembers that they were going back to the inn, Cleo has to run even faster. Meanwhile, in the middle of the capital, people start feeling the ground shake, and just then, a golem hand emerges from the ground. Not only there, but they start appearing in the restaurant and in the guild as well, and as expected, one appears in front of Mackie and the others as well. Everyone starts running as fast as they can, and the golem starts wreaking havoc. Ilio runs towards it but fails to land a strike on it, and lets Keane know that its vital area is its torso. However, after he manages to land a hit on its torso, the golem gets furious and throws various pieces of debris towards them, nearly missing Mackie. She then sees the golem with tears in her eyes as it crushes the person it has in its hand. At the same time, the other golem begins crushing the adventurers at the guild as well, while they remain helpless as neither their weapons nor magic seem to be working against it. Just then, Cleo appears and takes care of it, later informing the others that the torso contains its core, advising them to inform everyone about its weakness. Meanwhile, at the castle, a butler comes running and informs the king about the golems in town, saying that the guards and Linky's attendants have already gone to help. He further mentions that at this point, the royal capital might be destroyed. Liliana figures that they need to act quickly just like Linky said, and can't help but smile over the fact that Cleo was right under their noses this whole time. She then asks Linky to bring Cleo back after the uproar has died down, to which she replies, advising Liliana to keep the thirst to herself as now is the time to be serious. The king figures that this is what his expert skill was predicting and questions about the number of monsters and how much damage they inflict upon their city. While Liliana mentions that she can't sense their presence from the city, Linky says that they can't know the exact number of monsters until they confirm it with their own eyes. Liliana further wonders if there's a leader somewhere controlling them, as it should be far too soon for the ones Linky witnessed in the dungeon. Nonetheless, they'll only know the truth once they confront them directly, and for that, they need to attack the headquarters directly. Knowing that it will be tough to deal with the monsters when the Order of Knights is away, she decides to join the battle, but gets told by the king that she shouldn't. Both the girls get frustrated seeing his decision, and Linky comments on how it's a tricky problem when one's biological daughter is also the strongest force in the country. The king then asks Linky if they should take shelter if the military cannot act, to which she agrees, saying that it's the safest course of action. But Liliana argues that there won't be any need as the monsters won't focus their attention here. She further mentions that this attack seems to be random, as they would have already torn down the gates if they wanted to attack the castle. The best course of action would be to leave it to the powerful people in the guild who can deal with these monsters. However, Cleo's reaction is worrying Liliana, as after seeing the current situation, he became apprehensive that the capital would be destroyed and took action based on that. As the princess of the kingdom, she orders Linky to meet up with Cleo and resolve the problem. Additionally, she asks Linky if she can prioritize assisting Cleo over rescuing the citizens, to which Linky agrees. But she seems to have one condition for the king and mentions that if someone like Cleo, who has an exceptional knowledge of tactics to act without wasting any time, means that this situation is quite grave. Which is why, for the sake of the capital, he should be prepared to use the strongest force available for this country, that is Liliana. On the other hand, Keane is badly injured as he has to hold back his mana too much, otherwise the city will be damaged, and he would have died if Ilio didn't protect him. Ilio is also severely wounded, and he is the only one who can protect Mackie right now. One of the golems try reaching for Mackie when out of nowhere, he gets attacked by a strong force, and that person turns out to be Gown, who mentions that he knew Mackie would be here thanks to his meeting with Cleo in the morning. Seeing that the golem was causing trouble for his daughter, he lets the golem know that he's his opponent now. Gown further questions where Cleo is, to which Mackie replies that he went to the castle with his friend. Just then, the golem begins regenerating, which Gown finds to be a pain in the neck and starts to wonder what he should do if there's more than one around. Simultaneously, Cleo comes running and notices the two of them fighting the monsters. Just as the golem tries punching him, Gown replies back with a punch of his own and easily overpowers the golem. Cleo lets him know that he needs to destroy the center of its body or else it'll keep on regenerating. Finding this piece of information crucial, Gown easily strikes the golem in its torso, destroying it for good. Even though Gown figures the most of it from the expression on Cleo's face, he asks him to give a quick rundown. Cleo begins by explaining that someone is targeting the royal capital and has launched random attacks using the golems. As they are artificially created, there is probably no end to their numbers. They need to deal with the person leading them, and Gown figures that they are running out of time. As he has a friend who can keep the castle safe, Cleo decides to help the residents evacuate, but gets told by Gown to go and confront the enemy instead, as he's the one who understands the situation and has the ability to deal with it. Additionally, Gown advises him not to feel inferior because he's always second and tells him to leave this place to him. Mackie then hands him the healing potion he asked for, and after thanking her, he starts to believe that this is something only he can do and the friends only he can protect. Now that he has understood his assignment, Cleo runs the opposite direction, letting everyone know that he believes in them. Before long, he appears at the dungeon where Linky is already waiting for him. He asks her to take him to the deepest part of the dungeon, and when she asks if he can use his full power, Cleo lets her know that he's been training for situations like this and breaks the weakening bracelet. Even though they are aware that this might be a trap, the two of them enter the dungeon, and when a ton of golems appear, Linky questions why they didn't wait for them. Cleo lets her know that the capital would be done for if this many of the golems appear, and that they are created from rock and royal capital ground. The more golems that appear, the more holes open in the royal capital ground, which will cause it to eventually sink underground. Simultaneously, the dungeon begins sinking as well, and Linky realizes that they need to draw Golem to somewhere else and strike the enemy's base of operation as well. Following that, he asks her to be careful as the golems are causing the dungeon monsters to go wild. Just then, multiple monsters try to attack them at once, and while Linky takes care of the golems, Cleo uses his magic to get rid of the rest. Seeing that they are the only ones who can strike the monsters while progressing through the dungeon, Cleo is glad to be the second best in many fields for the first time. He then suggests increasing their speed and uses expert skills. Linky notices that his technique is different than what he was initially taught and mentions that she underestimated him. However, she is aware that they can't just fight them one by one and advises Cleo to pick up the pace even more. She then uses her expert skill as well. Apparently, her expert skill allows her to avert and block all attacks, and each time he fought her, he got humbled by her real quick. Furthermore, Linky comments that she's impressed by how strong he has gotten and figures that at this speed, they will reach the enemy base in no time. On the other hand, Gown notices that the speed at which the golems are coming has decreased and wonders if it's thanks to that short king, Cleo. Seeing him fight reminds Ilio just how strong he is as an S-ranker and figures that she's still got a long way to go before she reaches his level. Just then, Gown calls out her name and hands her a sword, telling her to use it as her sword broke earlier. Additionally, he lets her know that the most important thing for her blows isn't speed. She needs to throw away any thoughts she's having and only keep her weakness in mind. He then says the same to Keane, telling him that he worries too much, advising him to just let himself go loose. Mackie then lets them know that she will go with Gown, and the two of them should aid the other adventurers, to which they agree. Meanwhile, Liliana regrets not being able to help as she could have easily taken care of it and gets told by her dad to leave it to the soldiers. He further mentions that she needs to be patient as her magic is too powerful and reminds her that she's her daughter who he doesn't want to stay away from. This makes Liliana think how she's still in her father's cage and remembers her promise with Cleo. On the other hand, the scientist notices that the number of golems has decreased, but he couldn't care less as he's only venting his past resentments. Just then, the two of them appear in front of him, making him realize that they are no ordinary adventurers to come this far. He figures that they managed to prevent the monsters from following them by blocking the paths, while the two of them discuss how this feat pick enthusiast game is kinda weak. To their surprise, he makes another monster appear, making them realize that he was expecting them from the start. As both Linky and Cleo get excited to fight this new type of monster, the scientist informs them that they'll become the sustenance for his products, calling them the obstructors of the Demon King's dearest wish. Do you think Cleo and Linky will be able to defeat this new type of monster? Comment second if you'd like a part 2 of this series. As usual, thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.